While voices of dissent are getting much airtime of late, there are also voices of reason speaking up at the Synod to defend Catholic teaching. Join us from the Eternal City, Church Militant's Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, Catholics hear all the time about what dissenting Catholics have to say, but some of those at the Synod on Synodality are trying to keep the vision Catholic. Let's start with a Latvian archbishop who seems to be a real shepherd to those burdened with same-sex attraction. Who is he? What's he saying? And why does he feel the need to say it?
Brad, finally, after 3 weeks of constantly being fed, drip-fed on a diet of dissent, yesterday we had a lone voice standing for orthodoxy. Archbishop Zbigniew Stankiewicz from Riga, Latvia, was asked about blessing same-sex couples. And he was direct. He said, if we tell people in such a condition everything is all right, we are placing them in grave spiritual danger. Let me read a quote from him. He said, we welcome everybody with love and respect, but true love cannot be separated from the truth. Because if love is separated from the truth, it is no longer love. He also said that if a person is living in such sin, the sin of sodomy, when he dies, his soul will be in mortal danger. We must be faithful to the Holy Scriptures, he said, and what the Church for 2,000 years has discovered by interpreting the Scriptures. So he went on to say, if a single homosexual person struggling with homosexuality, intending to live a chaste life, comes and asks for a blessing, of course I will bless him. If a homosexual couple, again intending to live in chastity, come forward and ask for a blessing, I will certainly bless them. But if a homosexual couple come and say they want to live like husband and wife, I cannot bless them, because that would be to bless grave sin. And Brad, that was a very brave voice. And again, one of the few, very few lone voices we've heard, at least at the press conferences, because we are not told what's going on in synodal meetings. Sadly, a lot of the time we've had activists at our press conferences.
That was really impressive, the Archbishop there. He covered all the bases, and that's why I just love it when they're so complete. It was still brief, but it was very complete, covered all the bases. Wonderful. Excellent. Another defender of orthodoxy at the Synod, somewhat surprising to me, actually, was the Vatican Secretary of State. Tell us about his interventions at the Synod.
Well, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the second highest in command immediately after Pope Francis, apparently made a very strong intervention at the Synod, calling for faithfulness to divine revelation as interpreted by the magisterium. Now, of course, there's speculation about why Parolin, who generally keeps a low profile, he is very reticent about expressing his own views, particularly because as Secretary of State, he's more of a diplomat. And, his background is in Vatican diplomacy as well. Again, that has been problematic because he was one of the most important engineers of the Vatican-China secret concordat. And there are some, of course, speculating that he's probably making a bid for the papacy by telling people what his line is going to be if he is elected Pope, and therefore he made this intervention. But, skepticism aside, he did talk about faithfulness to divine revelation, and that for many is very heartening to hear.
It really is. I don't care who you are. You're speaking up for the truth like that. That is a wonderful thing. I hope more that fire catches on at the Synod and after. And of course, there are also those who seem to be attempting to derail the Church, not so much with doctrine, but with regard to how she governs herself in the future. One priest in particular is advocating supposedly for a decentralized church. Tell us about him and his issues.
Well, this priest is a prominent Italian theologian, professor of theology at the Pontifical Gregorian University. And he said something rather unsettling because he talked about the synodal process as a vehicle by which the whole church, the entire structure of the church needs to be rethought. So let me give a quote from him. He said, when we reach the consensus that the church is constitutively synodal, we will have to rethink the whole church, all the institutions, the whole life of the church in a synodal sense. Now, again, this is very problematic because what is he going to rethink, you know? Is he going to advocate that we now have 4 persons in the Blessed Trinity? Or is he talking about, or is this, again, code for rethinking the whole, ministry of the ordained priesthood, the sacramental theology behind it, which again seems to be up for grabs, in addition to blessing same-sex couples and throwing open the diaconate to women.
Yeah, we have the Church's canon law is trying to concretize pastoral practices, best practices that stem from the theology, the understanding of morals and all this, such as Canon 915, you shouldn't be giving communion to those who live in objective, manifest, grave sin. So whether they understand it as that or not, it's still problematic that they may be whitewashing that or maybe scandalizing someone else in that. That would be Canon 915. Are we just going to throw that out the door, or how's all this going to work? So a lot of questions on how the church is going to continue to govern herself, and are we going to have dicasteries from the top down? I know, Jules, also have to say that I think a lot of Latin loving Catholics, those who go to the traditional liturgy, would really advocate for a little more decentralization with regard to allowing them to make a choice whether they should go to the TLM or go to the Novus Ordo Mass. But that part of the decentralization doesn't seem to be part of the mix here. In a moment of vindication, Jules, in an earlier Rome dispatch, you were discussing the Pope's response to a dubia from Cardinals Berg, Sarah, and Zan and company about the possibility of discussing female ordinations, the door closed, and you said there was a code, kind of some buzzwords in the response saying this topic for a female ordination. Some people are saying that was still going to be bandied about at the Synod, even though it also seemed to say that the door was closed. And lo and behold, it's being discussed at the Synod. Tell us about that.
Now, what is very interesting is an intervention from a lay woman. We don't know who this lay woman is because, again, there is a gag order, but 2 or 3 sources from inside have anonymously leaked this information that on the 16th, that is Monday morning, there was an intervention. And intervention is a technical term for letting anybody get up and speak for 3 minutes on a burning topic. And this lay woman, a mother, she spoke and she addressed the whole question of the ordination of women. She basically slammed it and using very cleverly leftist discourse, if I may call it that, talked about how, you guys, how it would lead even further to the clericalization of the laity. Because, the whole mood is let's end clericalism. But then, at the same time, you want to ordain women and create another layer of the clerical caste. So she simply ripped that apart very cleverly, and she then went on to talk about what really concerns women and what women should really be concerned about, which is motherhood. This is such an important topic. This is central to the life of a woman, she said in a 3-minute speech. And then she talked about Mary, the mother of Jesus, the mother of God, the mother of the church, as a paradigm for considering, and talking about motherhood. She's one of the lay women, one of the voting lay women, by the way. There are 54 voting women. And above all, she received a round of thunderous applause after her intervention. So one really wonders how many are supporting the revisionist agenda and how many in that conference hall want to remain faithful to what has been handed down to us from the apostles.
Well, that is really heartwarming, Jules. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Our Lady of Akita, an approved apparition, told a nun in Akita, Japan, on October 13th, of course, 1973, there would come a time when, quote, the work of the devil would infiltrate even into the church in such a way that one will see cardinals opposing cardinals and bishops against other bishops. The church will be full of those who accept compromises, end quote. Seems like those times might be here, but don't fear. The bark of Peter is built to weather even this storm. Jules, thanks so much for bringing us more than a little good news today.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks again for watching today's episode of Rome Dispatch. This show is brought to you by donors like Real Estate for Life. If you're looking to buy or sell a home and want to support our mission, visit realestateforlife.org. Again, that's realestateforlife.org. Be sure to tell them Church Militant sent you. God bless.